Right, I've just finished a video about dog statistics, which I found really interesting. And I did touch on the subject of COVID dogs. And I want to sort of start expanding that issue. And I have witnessed, in my years of working with dogs, I have witnessed 2 fear periods. There may well be many more fear periods in a dog's life, but I know definitely of 2. And it may be disputed by other people, but I can tell you, I know what I've seen. Now, I knew of the first one for many years, but I actually witnessed it really up close when I bred a dog called Devon, and she was my husband's dog. Now, her mummy was my dog called Tulip, and I mated her to a Belgium imported German Shepherd, who I'm saying probably cost a lot of money to the people that bought him. And my Tulip was what I would call the peacekeeper of my pack. She was the nanny dog or the teacher dog. She would just be so calm and keep order. And of course I had my puppies had aunties that looked after them and their uncle that looked after them, because it was 4 generations. They had grandmum Bluebell, who was kind and a bit bonkers, a bit hyper. But Tulip, her daughter, was the opposite. She was the calmest dog ever. And of course Devon was her pup. So there was an incident that started off. Now, we were building a huge extension to our house, and it took 14 months. And we had local Devon builders who were absolutely gorgeous. And one of them was huge. One of them was really little. Okay. And they would come every day, 5 days a week, and start at 8 o'clock. And of course, we also had electricians and plumbers and everything all coming and going at the same time. And during that time, Devon was born. And all of the people that came to our house loved dogs. So, they'd be sneaking them a bit of lunch and things like that. And Devon loved the builders. She absolutely adored them. And then, all of a sudden, one day, she ran and hid under the table and was growling and barking at them. Like, what's going on with Devon? I was stunned. What's the matter with you, girl? Because there was no way that she would have had a dodgy temperament at all. And I have to say, I was a bit worried about her, And then I noticed that she was running her head along the floor, and I picked her up to cuddle her. And I felt her head, and it was red hot. Oh my goodness, her little face was hot. And I looked at her gums, and they were red raw. Oh, you could see bleeding, not like loads of blood, but you could see they were bleeding, and I could see the little teeth, and the big ones starting to try to come through. Oh, and some of the little ones were still in, and the big ones were coming through as well. And I took her to the vets, and just in case there was a problem, and she was fine. But what happened is that she went in and out of this fear period. And some days the builders would come and she would run up and be all excited and see them and happy to see them. Another day she'd be hiding under the table growling and barking at them. And that really gave me a good insight. Now, once her big teeth came through, there was never a problem after that. She was, whoa, and she was out there with the pack, and she was there, one of the girls, okay? So it really made me realise how much this teething business can affect a dog, a puppy. Then I noticed, as I was working with all these hundreds of different dogs, I noticed that there was quite a lot of incidences that would happen where a dog was in adolescence. And they would go through another fear period. And if anything happened to the dogs within these 2 fear periods, it can really imprint on them. And you have to really get to grips with it and deal with it. And I don't know why they go through a second fear period, but I'm trying to work it out. And if my first theory is right, that it's something to do with the teeth and Mother Nature trying to keep them safe until their big teeth come through, then could the second fear period be connected in some way with the head growing when they're in adolescence? Because, you know, Rottweilers and Staffies, for example, they're not born with these big wide heads, are they? You know, they're born with little skinny heads, and all of a sudden they've got these massive, great big heads. Bull Terriers have big, heavy heads. And so I'm wondering whether it's connected with this. Is there a chemical released, maybe, when their head and their bones and their skull is growing and their teeth, you know, developing their jaws? I don't know. I'm just trying to work it out. I don't know. I'm pretty sure somebody will probably come back and tell me it's a load of rubbish. But, you know, whatever the reason is, it does happen. And I'm going to give you 2 examples of dogs that I went out to, which were very interesting, actually. And one of them was where a dog was reactive to men with hats. The owner phoned me up and she said, my dog hates men with hats. Okay, so I went out and the dog was very sweet and didn't seem to have too many problems, but it just hated men with hats. So I said to her, right, okay, let's go back into this dog's history, because she had had it for, you know, I think from a puppy, if I remember. And I said, what happened to it either when it was a young puppy, before its big teeth grew, when it was teething, or during adolescence? She said, no, I don't know. What do you mean? What could have happened? I said, something scared it. What scared it? Think back. Oh, she said, there's only one thing that really happened that I can think of, is that I just popped into the shop and I was watching my dog, but I tied him to one of those ice cream signs. It's made of metal, you know, that sort of flaps in and out. I think it was one of those. And of course, something happened. Maybe the wind caught it, or whether the dog sort of walked forward and the sign fell. And of course, it was whole made of metal. And the dog was tied to it. So the dog got scared and ran off. And we was running across and nearly across the road or down the road or whatever. And so a man, kind man, tried to catch the dog, because it was obvious that the dog was scared, and the woman would run out of the shop and she was trying to chase after it. And the dog was terrified because of this thing it was dragging behind it. Okay? And the man tried to catch it. And so I said to her, was the man wearing a hat? She said, yeah, he was actually. There you go. So my theory is that the thing that it was dragging is no longer there. It's never happened again. Of course, she never tied it up to one of those again. And that incident has never happened a second time. But the fear, especially if it was going in and out, and it happened to be in a fear period, because it happened in adolescence, this incident, is that it's the man with the hat that caused the fear and made it scared. So that's not there, but they are. So I am saying that that's how it happened. And of course, what you need to do is then get different hats and start working with the clicker and the hat and putting it on work surfaces and on the floor. And every time the dog looks at that, you click and treat, it looks back at you. And it's done first off in the home environment, and then gradually you start wearing the hat and the dog is like, and then maybe you can get some friends to wear a hat and maybe take the person outside with the dog and wearing different hats and things like that. So you desensitize the dog to the hat. Okay, so, and you know, the same thing about these kind of things, all of these, you know, you need to work with all of these kind of high-vis jackets and things like that dogs are going to see when they're out, and desensitize them to anything like that. Now, the third one here, so that's Devon, the hat one, and the dog. This one was really, oh, I mean, it was quite funny actually in the end, because it reacted, it was scared, very scared, of a scary tree. That's what the owner said to me. The dog is scared of a scary tree up the end of the road. So I went out, and they were on a lovely housing estate. It was all lovely and no problems at all. And she would take the dog out, but she couldn't get it up the road. It was like agoraphobic. It wouldn't go out. It was scared of its life. So I worked with it in the house and started, building the bond and loving the dog and getting the dog to love me. And then gradually I took it outside on a harness and a long line. And I started working with it, with the this way game and the whistle game outside of the home, because it was a very quiet cul-de-sac. There wasn't any cars around or anything. So gradually I started getting it up close to this area where this scary tree was. And as I approached it, I said to the owner, "So where's the scary tree?" She went, "There." And it was a twig. It was like a little sapling. And if you imagine you've got two pavements here, and the road from the estate is coming out and joins a bigger road. And on this corner on the left-hand side, the council had put a tree, a little baby tree, a sapling, which would have been lovely when it was big and grown, lovely. Okay, and of course that's what the dog was scared of, this scary tree. So I said to the owner, "What's happened here?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What's happened on this corner?" So she said, I don't know. Well, I don't know what you mean. So I said, "Was there an incident where you and the dog were scared here? That something happened to you on this corner?" "Oh," she said, "yeah." She said, "We nearly got knocked down by a lorry. It was months ago." I said, "How old was the dog?" Dog was about 10 months old, right in the middle of the fear period. Okay. And the dog, the lorry came round the corner, and its back wheels came up onto the pavement, frightened the life out of the owner, frightened the life out of the dog, of course. The owner thought she was going to get wiped out by the lorry. And, well, she didn't, obviously. She was fine. But the fear happened at that time. So the lorry was gone. But what was still there? The tree, the little sapling tree, the scary tree. So the dog, in my opinion, associated the fear that had happened to it at the time with, that was the tree's fault. That tree scared me, and I'm not going anywhere near it. Scared my mum. So, okay, so that just gives you an example and how I worked. I got the dog round, it was no problem, because I you stand away from the problem, and then you click and treat, and every time the dog sort of, because I think that tree gonna eat me, and then gradually, as we're laughing and joking, and then gradually we got it nearer and nearer the tree, and every time the dog looked at the tree and looked back at me, it got a click and treat. So in the end, it was having a wee against the tree almost, you know what I mean? So if you have got a dog that's, let's say, scared of traffic, because something has scared it on the road and whatever, then you don't take it to a motorway and try and solve the problem. You work with it in the house, getting it to watch me and sit and hand signals and, watch me, you get the dog under control in a quiet, controlled environment. And then gradually you start introducing it to whatever it's scared of. So, here I had a dog that was a collie that was really scared of traffic. And, because a lot of our dogs here are rural, they don't see a lot of traffic, there might be farm dogs and things like that. And then you want to start taking them out, and all of a sudden, they're bombarded with all these fears and all these things going on. And so you just gradually get them nearer to more and more cars. So, first of all, it might be a car that's parked in a country lane or something, and you keep walking past it. and you click and treat and watch me, and you know, all of that to desensitize it to whatever it's scared of. And I will be talking to you about that in another video. I've got so much in my head, and you must excuse me if I go off at tangents, because all of a sudden like a thought comes in and off I go with it. Okay, so I started writing these down so that I try and keep on track. Okay, I'll speak to you soon, maybe tomorrow. Bye.